All right, welcome back. This is That Teach Us, Mr. Jones, and we're going to talk about, we're moving into chapter 4 today, and chapter 4 is about polynomial functions. So polynomial functions. It is also about rational functions as well. And we'll talk about that kind of later in the chapter. But we're going to start with getting rid of this. Maybe not. Okay, so we'll start with chapter 4.1, which talks about quadratic functions. Okay, so a quadratic function is a polynomial function, and with polynomial functions, these are any function that is in the order of a in x in, then you have plus a in minus 1, x in minus 1, and you go all the way down until you have ax, and then you'll have plus a0, which is your constant. So like 3x to the 5th plus 5x4 minus 3x to the 3rd plus 0x squared minus x plus 3. Okay, that's a polynomial. So just some simple equation with x's and variables. Now a quadratic function is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We can also say that it looks like this. Okay, it is a polynomial function of degree 2. Okay, so we had different degrees here, and we're curious about the degree 2 polynomial. Okay, and there's some things we want to note about a quadratic. So if we look at a quadratic, it is a parabola. So it looks something like this. Okay, and there's some parts here that we want to talk about. And the first two are these 2 points right here. Okay, these are called x-intercepts, zeros, roots, and solutions. And you find those by putting y equals 0 and solve for x. Okay, then we have this point right here. So this was your x-axis, so the points on the x-axis. Then you have your y-axis, and that is your y-intercept. And you find that by saying x equals 0, and then you solve for y. You have this point right down here, which is your vertex, or your turning or changing point. Okay, and that might be a little bit new for us. So let's look at some ways we can find that. The first way might be the easiest, is it's the midpoint of zeros. Okay, so the x value is the midpoint here, and then you're going to plug it back in to find your y. Okay, the second one, it is hk. Okay, and that just comes from this second equation here, hk. And if you're given this equation, you can find the vertex by negative b over 2a, comma f of negative b over 2a. And that's just saying that you're going to find this for x, and then you're going to plug x back in to find your y. And then the last thing here on this graph that we want to talk about is your line of symmetry, which is right there, and that is x equals h, or x equals negative b over 2a. Okay, and it just depends on what form of the equation that you are given. Okay, whether you're given the general or the standard form or the vertex form of the equation. Okay, and we've talked about this equation with transformations, how that this h moves it left and right, this k moves it up and down, the a flips it over, shrinks it, those kind of things. The next thing that we want to be able to do is we want to be able to go from this equation to this equation. And how are we going to do that? Well, we've done it before, and it's called completing the square. Okay, so let's briefly just talk about how do we complete the square. So if we start with an example here, let's say f of x equals x squared minus 6x plus 4. Okay, we're going to complete the square, but we're going to do it all on this one side here. So we're going to add the blank plus 4, but then we need to also subtract the blank, because if I add blank minus blank, those two blanks will cancel each other out. And how do I know what goes in the blank? That is b divided by 2 squared. Okay, so you're going to take negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3, squared is 9. So you're actually adding and subtracting 9 to both sides there. Okay, so then we're going to take this section. We're going to take this section right here and factor it, and then we'll combine these. So this factors to a perfect square. So x minus 3 squared, and then you have minus 5. So here, so we had this form right there. We completed the square, and we got that form right there. The most important part is this b divided by 2 squared. Okay. Going back to the parabola, or back to the vertex, we talked about how you could find it doing this. And that actually reduces, if I were to plug this in to the quadratic formula or to the equation of the general, you would get this. 4ac minus b squared over 4a. Okay, so if you want to know this, you can. I always like to just, if this is my parabola, we'll find this point and this point. We'll find the point right in the middle. That finds your axis of symmetry. Plug it in and find your y value. Sometimes that works out fairly easy for us. We will have some word problems. Okay, a lot of times these word problems are talking about stock markets, or if somebody's throwing something off a cliff, or if a football player is kicking a football. Okay, and this football goes in an arch like this. How far, how high are these items going? Okay. All right, we have some suggested problems. It looks like it starts on page 388. Numbers 9, 17, 25, 29, 39, 43, 51, 55, 65, 67, 69. Okay, quite a few word problems in here. 77. And let's look at a mistake problem. Let's just check out number 79 for your mistake problem. And then I like to look at the true false because we have true false on the test. Let's look at 83 through 86. Here's 4 true false problems for you. And then your questions. So question number 1 is, so question number 1 is, how do you find x-intercepts? How do you find x-intercepts of a quadratic? And question number 2, we'll say y, explain why b over 2 squared is important. Okay, so there are your 2 questions. If you have more, just let me know. This is at THS Mr. Jones signing off. Thanks for watching.